Hello all of you risk takers and truth seekers to podcast like the battlefield. Today, I'm going to share with you the little known fact from history, particularly from the Cold War, how the Pepsi owned Russian Navy. You heard me correct. Pepsi owned Russian Navy, and it was the sixth largest naval power in history. But before that, may I ask you a question? Are you more Pepsi or Coca-Cola? Which one you prefer more? Now, this question is meant to engage your attention while also delving into Cold War history. And yeah, we are going to discuss Pepsi, so please allow me to ask you a serious question. Did you know that roughly 35 years ago, Pepsi possessed the world's sixth largest naval fleet? Pepsi had enough weapons at that point in history to wage war on anyone who dared to oppose to them. But first, let's go in order. Welcome to the podcast, Live the Battlefield. My name is Bekes. I'm the Guinness World Record holder in the longest audio broadcasting. Apart from that, my entire life I spent from age 14 to my late 30s working and living in military. Particularly, I spent 5 years, consecutive 5 years in combat in a war for war independence in Croatia, ex-Yugoslavia, and then transferred to the military security intelligence services. Subsequently, I was transferred then to diplomatic security intelligence services, and finally, I became the podcaster. But now, let's go talk about how the Pepsi became the sixth largest navy in the world history. How it all started. In 1959, then US President Dwight Eisenhower decided to send a group of American cultural icons to the Soviet Union as a part of charity tour. Example, the US and the USSR agreed to stage cultural exhibitions in their respective countries to highlight their respective lifestyle and achievements. But as well, that was a good thing, we both agreed to share something with you, what you don't see in the movies. Even was a Cold War was happening between the East and West. It was a moment when there was happening cultural exchange. And that was the reason for one simple benefit. That was that you talk to your informants, to your spies, to your agents on both sides. So Russians couldn't say to Americans, no, we don't want you, or America doesn't say to Russians, we don't want you. People live for the centuries on some continent, and of course they have the connections with the people working in shadows. Now, I just say, Americans, Dwight Eisenhower, for those who don't know who General Dwight Eisenhower is, he was a guy who was in charge of Allied forces in Europe, and he was the guy who was responsible for the D-Day in Normandy in 1944. Now, among them was a guy called Donald Kendall. He was the vice president of Pepsi, who had a bright idea. Of course, why not introduce the Soviets to the sweet taste of capitalism by offering them free Pepsi samples? And I can tell you, I grew up in communism. Yeah, we wanted those things. The American exhibition in Moscow included a model American house in which Vice President Richard Nixon and Soviet leader Nikita Khrushchev engaged in heated dispute over capitalism and communism known as the kitchen debate. We're going to make a video about this some other time. They were comparing the advantages of communism and capitalism while analyzing the latest technologies and consumer products for the American people. Pepsi vending machine was one of the exhibition highlights, and as it happens, it was a hot July day, and the talk was tight because everyone was thirsty. The Pepsi vending machine was one of the show highlights, and Donald Kendall, the company vice president of marketing at the time, provided refreshment in the form of a glass of Pepsi. The photo that Kendall took of Nikita Khrushchev sipping Pepsi went viral in the US media and became the most successful Pepsi campaign ever. Well, unfortunately, Coca-Cola wasn't there. The Soviet premier reportedly said, "This is very refreshing," and he loved it so much that he asked for another. Since this was the first time a Soviet leader had ever sampled American product in public, it was a very historic occasion. Never again happened, except towards the end of the Cold War in 1989, 1990, there was a guy called Gorbachev who actually had commercial with one of the pizza from US. I'll not name it, so Google it. But he was a face for the pizza product in Russia. Now, how the Pepsi was introduced to the Soviet Union? And you ask yourself, what the Pepsi has to do with the Soviet Navy? Well, you don't learn these things in history books, as you don't learn many things about communism. For example, I used to be living communism. I used to be breed communism, nothing better. And Pepsi was being introduced to me as well in mid-80s. But how Pepsi was introduced to the Soviet Union? The Soviet market was mostly blocked to Western product, so as today, due to war in Ukraine. Therefore, Pepsi took advantage of this chance to penetrate. In 1972, year I was born, Pepsi made history as the first foreign consumer product to be sold in USSR, following the years of negotiations, of course. But there was a catch. Pepsi was unable to accept Soviet rubles as a payment since they were worthless outside of the USSR and could not be exchanged for other currencies. And I want you to take this very seriously. So Pepsi will sell the product to Russia, but they can't take rubles as a payment since it's worthless outside the USSR. Same as today. However, Pepsi was very smart because they have very smart people from the American. They're all marketing experts, executive experts. So they say, let's go strike a deal with the Soviet Union to resolve this matter. So in exchange for rubles, Pepsi would obtain Stolichna vodka. They are the market in the US and other nations. So let's go exchange product for product, right? Both sides benefited from this agreement. We have a lot of Pepsi, we have a lot of vodka, so let's go exchange. Now, this agreement allowed Pepsi to increase sales in the Soviet Union and gives Stolichna access to the new markets. However, something was happening in 1989. The belly ball and all this Cold War is entering into last phase of existence. Now, those who remember, USSR invaded Afghanistan and the US placed sanctions on Soviet goods, including vodka. As a result, Pepsi was unable to continue selling Stolichna in its primary market. Pepsi needed to renegotiate the terms of its deal with USSR since it was all about to expire. Now, Donald Kendall, CEO this stage of Pepsi at the time, came to Moscow to meet with Soviet officials. Of course, he's a smart guy from the United States. Kendall had personally mediated the agreement with Khrushchev 30 years before. Now, the Soviets were unwilling to give him the hard currency he demanded, $3 billion for his cold syrup. Rather, they put out another suggestion. They will provide Pepsi with a fleet of Navy ships that they could not afford to maintain or needed. That was agreement. We, Russia, we give you the fleet of the ships and submarines we can maintain or we don't need it. So this was a deal of the century. After accepting this offer, of course, the CEO of the Pepsi, Kendall, went on to acquire 17 destroyers, cruisers, frigates, and submarines. 17 vessels. This surpassed the fleet of nations like Australia and Spain, so to make it Pepsi the 6th largest in the world at the time, according to some estimates. 6th largest in the world, bigger than Spain and Australia. Naturally, Pepsi has no plans to maintain or use these vessels. With a rapid $3 million profit, he sold them to a Swedish scrap metal company. After that, Kendall made a joke about having disarmed the USSR faster than President Reagan. But now there's a brutal truth. Although the tale of Pepsi military takeover is intriguing, don't forget, Pepsi couldn't just take ships out of the Russian ports, but they ordered. It's untrue to state that the soft drink giant became a naval powerhouse because of this agreement. When Pepsi purchased the decommissioned Soviet warships. Now, this is the good thing. Pepsi comes with the idea, they send the brightest brain, and they say, we're going to disarm the Russians. 70 ships for the Pepsi And of course, obviously, Pepsi got some money from the US government. We don't know this, but I think that sweet deal has been done. But what the Russians, they give them the commissioned warships. Now, they're in different states and had retired from the active duty long time ago. Pepsi had more expertise selling snacks and soft drinks than planning military operations. Therefore, it was obvious that the business could not deploy the ships for the military purposes. Even though this historical occurrence is funny, it's vital to remember that selling surplus military hardware is not unusual. These devices have been bought by numerous nations for a variety of uses, such as film projector or museum exhibits. But ask yourself, was that a smart deal on behalf of Pepsi? What at the end of the Cold War signifies for us, although Pepsi's seafaring journey was brief, it had significant historical impact. It demonstrated how a soft drink manufacturer can participate in global politics and diplomacy, as how the trade can unite people despite ideological divides and foster mutual gain. Money. That's correct, money. It also demonstrated how unusual problems can be solved creatively to overcome obstacles that appear unresolvable. One of the other incidents of the Cold War was Pepsi acquisition of the Navy. No question asked, but it also represents the realities and events of the time. According to Kendall, we disarmed them financially. Well, I don't think so. They were disarming of the metals that they were not needed. So what's happened? You got ships, the Russians will put in scrap metal one way or another, and you stayed with your billions of dollars worth of products. Let me know, did you know the story of Pepsi involvement in the Cold War between US and Russia, acquiring 17 Navy ships and submarines and becoming 6th largest at the time naval power? Thank you for watching Live the Battlefield. Feel free to subscribe, share, like, and comment, and let me know what do you think, how Pepsi or Coca-Cola can do in future business with Russia.